Come and fly away with me. Come and fly away with me. Come and fly away with me. Come and fly away with me.
Hi, I'm Laura,
And I'm Jessica,
and welcome to Man Nomads.
a podcast about international teaching, travel, and life.
We met in our undergrad music program in Minnesota and are now both international music teachers.
I am teaching for a school in Panama,
And I'm teaching for a school in China.
and we're finally in our new locations. I know it's been a hot minute, so no one's surprised.
But we are both still teaching online, so more about that in a little bit. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to check out our Instagram and follow us at No Man Nomads Podcast.
And if you're listening on YouTube, we would appreciate if you would subscribe to our channel, turn on the notification bells so you get alerted every time we upload.
Mm-hmm. So last episode, which was many moons ago, we talked with Cheryl, my former student, about life as a music major.
Yes, and this episode, we're gonna give an update on our current living, teaching, moving abroad during a pandemic circumstances. It will probably be part 1 of 2 because, man, y'all, a lot has happened. Hence why episodes have been posted far in between.
Yes.
Whatever the saying is. But we're here to wrap up the season with a final crazy update.
Yeah, we want to tell you about the last 6 weeks before we go on our holiday vacations and start the new year, and then we'll reset and have some new stuff for you guys for next season. So I think we're just going to start out with talking about what we needed to do before we got to our countries and what that process was like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, take it away.
Okay. Well, Laura left a week before me, but yeah, as far as things I had to do, I had to get an FBI report. I had to send the FBI report when it was done to DC to get, authenticated. I had to, I don't know. I feel like I definitely had more stuff to do. I'm not remembering it right now. I think that was the big thing. And then I also had to fill out documents for my cat and then send those also to DC to get authenticated in order to bring her, and taking her to the vet and making sure she had, the rabies, whatever vaccine, so she was ready to rumble. Yeah, that's the main things, I think. I'm sure I'm missing things. I don't know. I had to get passport photos or little minor things, make sure my driver's license was up to date. Yeah, a lot of it was because I'm applying for residency, which I'm actually in the middle of. I'm a temporary resident of Panama right now. I have a little ID. Yeah, and I'll be an official resident within 6 months. I'll get a second ID, and I think it's good for my entire life. So I will be able to come out of Panama, I think, for my whole life.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to do any COVID tests before you got on the plane, or you did?
Yes. Okay. So I could. Okay. You could either do a COVID test. They kept changing the dates. It was 72 hours and 48 hours. I think you needed the results 48 hours before you traveled, or, which I don't understand, but you could take it in the airport when you landed in Panama. So I elected to do it before. So I did it maybe 3 days before I got the results, about 2 days before I left, and just brought it. So I didn't need to do anything with that when I got to the airport. But I think the thing was that pushed me to do it before. I mean, other than just general safety, because I felt better about getting on a plane knowing I didn't have the virus. But the thing is, if I came on the plane and I had a positive test, I think they would like still let you on the plane because nobody checked until I landed. But if your test was like positive and you did it before, you could quarantine like where you wanted, I think was the thing. But if you got there and tested positive, you would have to go to like a certain hotel that they tell you. So, like I said, I just didn't want one more thing to worry about. And with bringing my cat, I didn't really want to be waiting like an hour for COVID test results in the airport with my pet. So yeah, I did it before. Everything was fine. Yeah.
And you just flew straight there, right? Because it's a lot shorter.
No,
you
I flew to Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
I had a really short layover. It was like an hour and a half, but by the time you like deplane and go to the other part of the airport, I really didn't have a ton of time.
Yeah.
In Atlanta, I met one of my coworkers. She was traveling through Alaska, so I met up with her there. So that was cool.
Nice.
And then, yeah, when I landed in Panama, the school hired this like company to walk us through immigration, which was actually like pretty nice. And the plane gave us the wrong like customs form. so the lady filled out a new one for us, and I had to like alert the vet at the airport like 3 days before that I was bringing my cat, and I did, and I got a response. But when we got there, the vet was not there, so I had to wait like an hour for the vet to come. And I'm thinking, okay, it costs like $100 or something for this checkup. And so I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna like weigh her, check her temperature, like take her out. No, literally by the time the vet got there, he just said, open up the carrier. Someone like opened it up, and he just looked down at my cat. It was like, okay. And like signed a paper. And I'm like, I waited for a vet to basically just be like, yeah, it's a cat.
Yep.
And yeah, it was weird. So because we had already gone through like all of VAG claim and stuff, like there wasn't somewhere else for us to like sit. So we went back in this weird like office back room and like sat and hung out with this dude. But yeah, it was good. It was just, I'm sure for like some legal reason, it needs to be a signature from like an official vet. But I was like, it's all about money, right?
Yeah.
I want more money. So, but yeah, it was good. Then a driver picked me up, came to my apartment, temporary apartment, and the HR lady met me. I saw her. I filled out a couple of forms. I don't remember what they were when she got here. Mainly, I think it was like they were giving us part of our like overseas allowance or whatever. So I had cash when I got here from them. I mean, it was my money, but they took it out for me. And yeah, then my middle school principal and one of my other coworkers like just stopped by quickly, brought me like beers and said, hey. So yeah, it was good.
Nice.
And a lot less long and exhausting compared to going to Kazakhstan. Yeah, I think the takeoff to landing was like 9 hours or something. You know, of course you have travel time before and after, but yeah, when you all said and done, it could be like door to door in like 12 hours. It was good.
And normally you'd have a flight that's longer than that.
Right. Normally one of my flights from Kazakhstan would be like 8 hours or 9 hours.
Yeah. Definitely very different. So my getting to the country, I had a lot of visa stuff. Anyone who's ever gone to China probably knows that they do a lot of background checks and stuff for the visa. So I had started that when I accepted the job in January. And then because of COVID, a bunch of things were put on pause and changed completely. So then I had to kind of start that over in like August. Similar things to what Jessica said, background check, birth certificate, like a bunch of just like forms and stuff and forms and money, basically. And then I had to get a COVID test 72 hours. The results had to be within 72 hours of my takeoff time. So I called the nurse's hotline to like figure out what would be a good timeline for that, because in Minnesota, the tests are a bit easier to come by, and the results have been processing faster, or at least in October they were. So there was a chance that if I waited 72 hours or more than 72 hours, they would come back at the wrong time, basically. So did that. Everything was fine. Negative test. It was super easy. Like I know some people who haven't taken the COVID test yet are nervous about what it feels like and stuff. And the one that I took in the States was not a big deal. It really wasn't compared
Mine didn't even bother me. It was
to
like 3 seconds. I like drove up in the car and
If you've ever gotten like blood drawn or like any other procedure at the hospital, it probably hurt more than the COVID test hurt. So that was fine. And then my flight path was Minneapolis to LA. And then I had a really long layover. I think it was almost 7 or 8 hours. And then that was straight to Guangzhou, China. So that was like 14 hours, I think. And surprisingly, it went by kind of fast because we didn't board the plane until around midnight LA time, which was like 2 a.m. Minneapolis time. So I was already really tired. So I basically just went to sleep right away, and they gave us a bag of snacks. It was in our seat when we got to the seat. So I didn't need to worry about waking up for a meal or anything, which was kind of nice. But
ours was like that too. It was like 3 of the same bags of snacks through my 2 flights.
Yeah. They just need to keep you alive. It's not like, fun or delicious or anything. And mine was like,
Cheez-Its are delicious. I won't argue.
mine was not.
Oh, we had Cheez-Its. Like, how can you be mad?
Mine was half like the most American snacks you could think of. Like I had a Kit Kat, an Oreo, like just weird American stuff. And then the other half was like Chinese stuff that I could not tell what it was, even if I opened it, even if I
I
looked
think
at it,
ours was
smelled it.
like Cheez-Its biscotti cookie thing, and I think that was like really it. Maybe there was like pretzels in there too, and like a water.
So I flew to there, and people were asking, like mainly my family, like what the flight was like. I don't really know why, but like all of the flight attendants were wearing the full PPE, and a lot of the passengers were. A lot of them hopped into the bathroom on our super long layover and put on full PPE suits, shields, masks, obviously, everything. And actually, I was one of the odd ones out to not have the full PPE. I just had a mask.
I think I saw maybe like, I don't know, 2 people.
It was the majority of the flight.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a full flight. Like they filled all the seats. My first flight, it was Delta, I think. So they didn't fill the middle seats. And I think that's one of the only airlines now that doesn't fill the middle seats.
Yeah, I flew Delta, so we
Yeah.
didn't have middle seats on either of my flights.
Yeah. So that was basically my flight, was like trying to sleep for a majority of it, watching a couple movies. The guy next to me only spoke Chinese but was trying to have conversations, so that was lovely. And then I went to the bathroom a bunch just to like basically take a breath and take
Yeah.
my mask off because I had been wearing it for like 36 hours or something at this point. And so
Yeah.
I looked it up and I changed my mask every 8 hours because they said that was like the time that it would start to not be as efficient. So yeah, it's getting gross.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to talk about like the current situations in the country
Yeah.
before
Yeah,
this?
let's do that.
Okay, we have like a big topic coming your way. But, yeah, okay. So I think the situations in both our countries right now I think are similar. I think China is more on the tail end of it. But for me, I mean, you have to wear masks everywhere or you will be fined. And none of this leaving your nose out stuff, like that doesn't count either. So you have to wear your mask everywhere you go. Everybody has to, like, even if, like, people wear it, like, out running and it's Panama, like, it's hot. So, yeah. And you need to get your temperature taken when you go in anywhere, and hand sanitizer when you go in anywhere. When I first got here, they had a curfew of 11 p.m. and this week they actually just upped it to 9 p.m. So Panama had been in a pretty strict lockdown. Like, you could only leave, I think I've talked in previous podcasts about it, but you could only leave for 1 hour, 3 days a week, depending on what the last number of your like ID or passport was. So like women could leave Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and men could go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So like if the last number of my passport is like 7, I could go from 7 to 8 a.m. And they allow like a commute time. So maybe I could have a half hour on either end, but still it's not that much time. And then I guess after a couple weeks in, they said men were like quote unquote misbehaving, so they took away the Saturday from the guys.
Love it.
The guys could only leave 2 days a week. Of course, there was like some exceptions, I think, for like small children or like pets and things, but in general. So it's only been open for, well, since the middle of October, so not very long. So I mean, cases have gone up a little bit, hence why the curfew has been pushed up. And we might potentially go into like a partial lockdown again, like maybe, I don't know, over the weekends or for a week at a time or something. I mean, we'll see what happens, but overall, like a lot of things, almost everything is open, but they're doing, like I said, they're taking precautions with the temperature and the hand sanitizer, so it's felt pretty safe. How about yourself?
Well, so things are quite a bit different here. And I think people listening to this who haven't talked to me in a while might be a little concerned about it. But when we get into the next topic, I think you'll understand why it's not as big of a deal. So basically, masks are only required at certain businesses, mainly larger like grocery stores, Walmart, and this other big grocery store that I go to require masks. And the other bigger one does take your temperature before you go in, but Walmart doesn't. Everywhere else I've been to doesn't require a mask. Some people wear them on the streets. I would say probably half of the people I see are wearing a mask on the street, and it's not even specific to, you know, locals or expats. I see about half, regardless of who they are, wearing masks. And what else? Everything is open: gyms, restaurants, bars, taxis, public transit. Oh, you do have to wear a mask on the bus and the metro. So public transit, that's good. Technically, a lot of the official taxis say that you need to wear a mask, but on the few times I haven't, they haven't asked me to put one on. So, yeah, the mask thing, I know that that's pretty recent. I don't have specific dates. I can only talk about what I've seen right now, but I know that it's pretty recent that they have had less mask requirements in more businesses. Other than that, I mean, people are, I don't know, it's relatively normal here. Um, like people meet in big groups and meet strangers on the sidewalk. There's not really like there's definitely not a 6 foot thing, because I have people like right behind me in the grocery store, right next to me on the sidewalk. I think some people look at me and see that I'm foreign and give me a little more space, just because there's like the stigma that if you're not from here that you might have the virus or something. But I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, it's a cultural thing
Yeah.
that they're really close.
Yeah. I don't know. Did I miss anything else that's like standard practice for?
Yeah. No, I think you got it.
Okay.
Yeah. But like you said, that's pretty new there. Before
Right.
it was similar to Panama, right? I mean, maybe not with the curfew, but didn't you had to wear they had to wear masks. There was
I think the only
like
thing that was different in the last couple months was the mask mandates in certain places. And like when I was first talking about um, flying here and talking with like my bosses and stuff, I was asking them what the situation was. And they said, you usually have to wear a mask to walk into a business, but then you can kind of look around and see that, you know, are most people still wearing them or pulling them down or taking them off? And people would just kind of go by what the norm is for that business. And I'm not even seeing that at all now. Like some people will pull them down at Walmart or something, but considering it's required to enter the building, I'm going to keep mine on. So,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
All right. You ready to get into it?
let's do it. So, probably most of you who are actually listening to this podcast regularly know my situation, but I somehow contracted COVID between my test on, 72 hours before the flight and being in the hotel in quarantine.
I
So
mean, you could have gotten it like a little bit before the
could have,
test, even
yeah,
just
I
still
could have
just
gotten it on the flight. I could have gotten it beforehand because it takes
yeah.
up to like 5 days to incubate and show up on a
Right.
test. But for whatever reason, I had a negative test before I boarded the plane and the negative test after I landed. So I'll go into a little bit of the process that everyone went through when we landed. So there was just a lot of steps, different QR codes to scan, and like basically this whole process of testing people again to make sure that they didn't have the virus, even though we all had tests before we got on the plane. So yeah, just scanning some QR codes, putting in health information, waiting in lines. They gave us another COVID test, nasal and throat swab, and then, some more stamps on our passports. And then basically from getting off the airplane to going to my hotel, it took about 6 hours. So, because the whole plane had to go through all of these steps, so it was a lot. And we had to wait to get on a bus to get to a random hotel where we had mandatory quarantine for 14 days. The hotels ranged quite a bit from what I hear. Some people had some maybe what you would call 2-star hotel situations, whereas I was pretty lucky and I got maybe like a 3 or 4-star location. And so they would bring us meals. Different hotels did it differently, but you could either order meals. Some hotels forced you to eat whatever they had made that day within your dietary restrictions, and then other hotels allowed for you to order food from outside, whether it be grocery store or fast food or whatever. So I did that for 2 weeks. I was teaching the whole time, mainly ordered food from outside because the hotel food was not really what I was used to. And then, so on your like 13th day, they come and give you a COVID test. They took my temperature every day, but we got another COVID test like the night before you're supposed to leave, so that if there's any problems, then they know before they set you free. So I had that test at like 10 a.m. and then taught that day, went to sleep around probably 10 p.m. And then I got a phone call at midnight on the hotel phone. So it was super loud. And the person on the phone said, like, the government is here to see you. And I had been sleeping. So I was like, is this a dream? What's going on? Why did they say it like that? Like, what would the government want from me? I literally just got here. Like, maybe it's something with my paperwork. I literally thought it was a prank. That was my first thought. I don't know why. But so I told him to say it again like 2 more times because I didn't understand. And I was just like, I need more information. I don't understand. What are you talking about? And so I still didn't get it. So then he's like, someone's at the door. You need to talk to them. So I hung up. I went to the door. No one was there. Then I waited like a half hour. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I don't know if I should just go back to sleep. I don't know if this is real, whatever. So there was a group chat that we could contact the hotel staff, like if we needed anything throughout our stay. So I texted that group and I was like, hi, I just got a phone call from the desk saying someone was here to see me. I don't really understand. Can you call again or explain more? And they called again and said that my COVID test I had taken earlier that day was a suspected positive. And people from the CDC here were here and at the hotel, and they wanted to ask me some more questions. So they did. They came up and asked me, they came into my room and they asked me just a lot of random questions, like basically how I had been living my life in the States before I got there, how often did I come in contact with other people, that type of thing. That took probably 30 to 45 minutes. And then they said that they're sending my COVID test to a different lab. So instead of taking another sample, they just gave the same sample to a different lab, and that I would find out the results in the morning. So I was still kind of freaked out because that was the only information they gave me. And I messaged someone who had been helping me at school just to alert the admin, like if something was going on. I wasn't really sure what was happening. And so then in the morning, the person from school I had messaged contacted the hotel, and she spoke Chinese, so they kind of gave her as much information as they could, and basically the same information that we were just waiting to find out, like, is this just a false positive or what's going on? So yeah, we waited for a while and found out that that one was also positive. And then things happened fairly quickly. I got some more calls explaining what was going to happen. I was going to a hospital. I was going to take an ambulance. I needed to bring all of my stuff, all of my suitcases, pack up everything. It was already packed because I thought I was leaving. And they were going to take me to this hospital for further tests. My director was hoping it was that they were going to give me another COVID test upon my arrival, and that we were all hoping it was just like 2 false positives, or I was thinking, since they took the same sample and tested it twice, why wouldn't they just take another sample? Because maybe they switched up the samples, or, who knows. So I had to carry all of my own luggage, which was very hard because I had 4 suitcases and no one could help me because I was suspected positive, so they didn't want to touch my stuff. And then I just sat in the back of an ambulance, like normal, next to the person who was like from the hospital. And that was like a probably 30-minute ride. It was kind of long. And then I went up to the hospital room and they got me set up in a hospital bed, and a bunch of people started coming to take tests and stuff. There was another patient next door who spoke English, so he was helping to translate like how I was going to order food, how I was going to contact the doctor and the nurse, because there were QR codes on the back of the door for all of that stuff. And yeah, the first day was just them taking a lot of tests and samples of stuff. They didn't give me another COVID test that day. But so then the next day, I kept thinking like, this is just going to be like super quick. Like they're going to take more tests and find out that I'm not actually positive. Because I'm like, how the heck could I have gotten it? I had all these negative tests. I wore my mask. I followed the rules. I was in the hotel for quarantine. So everyone's saying, 14 days, 2 weeks, and I was in the hotel for 14 days. So even if I did have it, it should have been gone by that point.
Right. That's the part that doesn't make sense to me. And all of like you're talking,
I know.
like even if you had it, like when you landed, like it should have been mostly gone by the time you left the hotel.
Yeah. I think the point is that people could take away from this. The 14 days is not a hard and fast rule. It is rule of thumb. It could be different for everyone. It doesn't mean that you're going to stop having symptoms, and it doesn't mean that you're going to produce a negative test. Because I've talked to some other people now that had it, and they tested positive for an additional week to 2 weeks after having the symptoms go away. So, and it's still new, so there's not a lot of speculation about if you're still contagious at that point. And here they're a lot more conservative, so they want to err on the side of caution and wait until you have a negative test. So fast forward to like I was in the hospital for like 10 days. They gave me a COVID test every 2 or 3 days. And then I knew I needed 2 negative tests. So that would take at least 5 days. And then a better CT scan. So they scanned my lungs, and I had some inflammation. So that to me was like the nail in the coffin. Like I definitely had it. I had all these positive tests, and there was this inflammation in my lungs. So that basically tells me that I did have it. And then I finally got 2 negative tests after about 10 days. And then they transferred me to a different building, still on the hospital campus, to do an additional 14 days in isolation to monitor me, make sure that no symptoms arose or that I didn't have any more positive tests or whatever. So the original 10 days of being in the hospital, there was at one point another patient in my room. And then we were also able to walk around in the hall, and everyone was wearing masks, but we could kind of move around. And, there were windows, there was fresh air. Like it didn't completely feel like isolation. But then the last 14 days were like similar to the hotel, but it was smaller. and it wasn't as nice. It wasn't a 4-star hotel. So that situation. And then I continued to have negative tests. I always felt fine. I was a little bit tired on some of those days, but I wasn't sure if it was because I was in a hospital environment and just tired from being stressed and not knowing what was going on, or if it was actually the virus taking a toll on me. But finally, I did get out on the day that was planned, the 15th day of that second isolation. So from the hotel to me actually coming to Shenzhen, it was 40 days. So that was a lot more than we planned for.
Yeah, no, but like, oh man. Yeah, I can't imagine. Here it's like was a little bit weird because if you had a negative test when you landed or but whatever within like the few days before you left, you didn't need to quarantine. Like at all. So like I think that was like a little weird. Not that I saw a ton of people like when I got here, but I did because I did see some people because I had like people from school like coming to, you know what I mean, get me to sign stuff.
Yeah.
Or we did a tour like I think like 6 days after I got here where we went around the city. Um, Even again, we were not all like smushed on top of each other. We were sitting in like different rows of the bus wearing masks and all that. But yeah, it is kind of interesting to me because well, like you just said, it's like you had a negative test before you left, a negative test when you landed. So like I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
again, not that the 14 days is like a holy grail, it works for everybody, but it's like at least if I was like still like had it but tested negative, at least 14 days gives it a good chance for it to get out of my system, even if I'm not tested again, if I was exposed. But like here, like I said, they don't have it. And I know coming home this summer too, it's like it was, I mean, you're supposed to quarantine for 2 weeks, but no one checks on you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're supposed to track your temperature every day, but if there's no one you're reporting to, it's hard to enforce it, even in the States too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, even in the States, they tell you, even if you do test positive, you're not going to be admitted to a hospital. They say, wait until you have symptoms to where you normally feel like you need to be in a hospital. Partially because they don't have room for every single person who has a positive test. And partially because, like, I could have just been in my apartment and like I didn't need anything. I felt fine. One doctor came in every day and his only job was to ask me how I was feeling, if I had any symptoms. And every day I was like, I'm fine, I'm great. Like I could run a marathon. Well, maybe not a marathon, but you know, I feel good. I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, you said what, maybe like a week or like 5 days after you got there, like halfway through your like hotel quarantine was the time where you thought maybe you weren't feeling
Yeah.
like as great. But
Yeah.
I mean, when you just traveled, especially the long distance, it's hard to know if you're just like mentally and emotionally exhausted from a situation or if you actually are like physically not well.
Yeah, I had asked some people from school in the group chat who had done a quarantine previously, like, should I get a test right away? Because in the States, they say if you have any symptoms related to COVID, you should just get a test so that you can rule that out. And so it's not the same here, or at least it wasn't in the hotel quarantine, is since they're taking our temperature every day, if there was a problem, then they would probably tell you. They also
Well, and
said,
to get a test at the end of 2 weeks
yeah,
also.
yeah. They also said that I could consult the hotel doctor and just talk to them and see what's going on. But I was like, well, I mean, if they haven't noticed anything, because I felt kind of hot like you do when you have a cold. But since they didn't say anything when they were taking my temperature, I figured it was just, you know, traveling and all of these changes that it kind of happens for most people when you travel a long distance like that anyway. So I wasn't worried about it, but
Well, if you're adjusting to like a new like climate and like plants and environment and stuff too.
yeah. So because of my family and I were like doing the math to see like when could I have gotten it, how long could it have lasted, like theoretically, because we didn't really know anything. But if we are assuming that that time that I felt bad in the hospital for like 3 days was the beginning of it, then I had it for almost 3 weeks, because that was how long I had tested positive after that. But that's assuming that I probably got it on the plane. So if I got it earlier, then it would have been more like 4 weeks. So
Right. Maybe you were exposed but not presenting yet.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So hopefully everyone gets tested regardless.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, that's part of like why I wanted to get, again, obviously in your circumstance, there's situations where, like I said, it will still like be negative, but that's like why I wanted to get tested before I left too, because it was like, if I test positive, then like I don't want to go right now. I want to wait and postpone till I'm better. But since I was at least in the moment negative,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it was kind of I get like from a logistical standpoint, especially people traveling farther, like my friend that came from Alaska, she was traveling for basically 24 hours with her layovers and stuff. So I get the timing of getting a test before can be tricky, but it was kind of interesting that like people could get on the plane without having a test, not knowing.
Yeah. Luckily, I didn't ever feel physically bad, but it was very hard, like emotionally and mentally for me, because I had been thinking when I was in the hotel 14 days and then I'm going to go to school and like everything's great. I was excited to come to my apartment, and like you have this countdown that you think is going to happen. Like it never even crossed my mind that I would be testing positive, because I was also feeling fine. So then when they were like, no, just kidding, everything you thought was a lie, it was really hard for me to get over that and have a lot of my freedom taken away. Like even in the hotel, I could do whatever I wanted. People weren't coming in and giving me tests or taking my blood or anything.
Right. Well, and also you're in, I don't know, just like to being in a foreign country you haven't been before. It would be different if, I mean, not that I'd want to be in quarantine in Kazakhstan, but like at least it's somewhere like I've been before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or I don't know, for you, like Turkmenistan, again, not that you want to be in quarantine there, but like if it was there, at least it's like a country you've been to and you're a little familiar with.
And the culture, like that being my introduction to the culture, and like there wasn't a lot of communication. Like when you go to a doctor or a nurse for any reason in the United States, they walk you through the process. They're like, we're going to take your weight now. We're going to get a doctor to do X, Y, and Z. And there was not any of that in China. They told you what they wanted to.
I wonder if some of it too was just because their English level, and so maybe they didn't know how to communicate it to you.
Well, I even asked in the group chat that was with a translator and a human translator from my school, because I wanted to know like more of a timeline of things, like how long am I going to be in here? What do I need to get out? Like I wanted to know the scope of it. And it took a lot of prodding to actually get the answers out. But I think that's just the way they do things, you know? And it makes sense because if you know you have to be there, it's not elective, there's nothing you can do to get out, then you don't really need more information. But for me, mentally, I needed it.
Yeah. Well, because you were already like 2 weeks in alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The alone wasn't so bad. Like in the hotel, I was fine. I had plenty of people to talk to. My Wi-Fi was good. I was still teaching. I didn't teach at all while I was in the hospital because the internet wasn't good. And they would come in at random times, like, come on, we're going to get a CT scan. We're going to go take your weight. Like, that, and it would also be kind of weird to be calling my students from the hospital and have to explain all of that. So luckily I didn't.
You end up telling your kids about it? Did they know?
No, we're not supposed to tell them about this because there's some like politics with the parents and stuff. So I didn't tell them. They said that there was some problems with paperwork with my visa because apparently that happens a lot with the students. So they just kind of brushed it off and were like, oh, that's fine. And then now that I've been back on online teaching again, they did ask like where I was and when I'm coming back to actual physical school. And so I just kind of gave them a blanket response and said I'll be there in January. So I don't think they're really going to be like detectives about it. So
yeah. Or like, I mean, if they figure it out, it is what it is. It's a situation.
I feel like the older kids probably figured it out, but then also understood the ramifications of if we were to say that. So we just, we didn't want to scare any of the parents, any of the students for any reason. So
yeah. Well, and by the time you are there in January in person, you will have been almost like 2 months.
Yeah.
In China.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it'll be fine. So we're going to wrap this episode up and we're going to continue the update in a part 2. We're going to talk about school and some more things that Jessica has been doing since she landed in Panama for next week.
Or the next time an episode's posted, because it probably won't be 1 week. I'm just randomly, but looking ahead to like next season, it'll probably be like bi-weekly instead of weekly, because this has been not sustainable when we're in different locations to do every week. But anyways, speaking of looking to the new season, if you have questions or suggestions for us, please let us know. The best places are in YouTube comments, or even better would be on our Instagram page at Man Nomads Podcast.
Yes, especially if you have more questions about like COVID or China stuff with COVID, because I tried to just keep it succinct, but like if you have specific questions, I'll definitely answer them. So on our Instagram, we're also posting extra clips, pictures. We're gonna hopefully do some stuff over the break to catch everyone up on episodes that you might have missed and reminders about upcoming episodes.
Yes, we only have 1 more episode left this season. Like I said, or like Laura said, a continuation on our update, a final update before we take a break for the holidays.
Yeah. And then we're going to be back at it with more episodes for you in early 2021. We already have a voluntary guest for season 2. All of our other guests have been involuntary. This one asked specifically to be on, so that's going to be exciting. And thanks for listening to Everything in the World.
And we'll catch you next time.